right, guys, so just like we did when we created our USB and PCB and did that self-check to make sure that our model was accurate, we are going to be doing the same thing for our version 1 enclosure. So at this point, you should be on your drawing tab labeled 1-to-1. And instead of creating a new drawing tab, we're just going to make sure everything's super organized, and we're actually going to add a sheet to this drawing tab. So you're going to click the sheets icon on the left hand side and press this icon to insert a sheet. And now it brings up a sheet 2. So it's the same sheet size, same units, millimeters, but it's just a second sheet. And if we printed this out, it would be the second sheet in the printout. Before we do anything, let's just go ahead and rename this sheet. So I'm 2-finger clicking on sheet 2 and renaming, and you guys can rename this V1 enclosure. Just to keep everything organized. What we can actually do here is also rename sheet 1 USB PCB, just so everything's labeled. And I'm just going to make sure I'm clicked on the V1 enclosure, and then I can close my sheets. Before we insert any drawings or anything like that, I'm just going to go to the sheet properties. So I'm 2-finger clicking on the sheet itself, going to sheet properties, and I'm going to set the scale to 1-to-1. This just ensures that we don't have to change the scale each time we insert a new view. And again, guys, just make sure the size is an A size sheet. That's your standard 8.5 by 11. A couple of you guys had B and C chosen for the last exercise. Just make sure it says A and then hit the green check. Now we can go up here and actually start inserting our views. So we're not going to insert USB and PCB. We are actually going to be inserting the bottom of whatever your version 1 enclosure was. So you had a couple options for that. I'm going to use my glued enclosure version 1 for this example. And it's okay if you're clicked on parts for this instead of Part Studios, because we're only inserting one part. So I'm going to click bottom enclosure, and I will start with the top. And the top always goes in the top left. And then sometimes you can get the bottom to appear or the front view to appear right away, but I'll just show you if you don't get that, then we'll just change this to front, and this is inserted here. We'll click again to insert, and we'll do the right hand side. Oh, I'm still on, see, this is what happens. I'm still on USB. I'm going back. I'm going to make sure that says glued enclosure. Now I'm going to insert the front. Go back up, make sure this is on glued enclosure, hit the right hand side, right goes in the bottom right corner, and then last but not least we have isometric. So the 4 standard views in an engineering drawing. Make sure, guys, these are as lined up and as nicely positioned as possible, just so it looks neat and clean. So now we have our 4 views. We do want to show some hidden lines. There are hidden lines on this side view. Our enclosure isn't just a rectangle, so we want to show that there's stuff going on inside of our enclosure. So I'm going to 2-finger click on the side view and press, gotta zoom out a little bit, show hidden lines. And then those hidden lines generate, and that's all you need to do to the side view. In the top view, we want to add some dimensions. So let's add dimensions for the length of the opening. So I'm clicking the inner portion of our enclosure. And then let's also add dimensions for the width of the opening, which is 16. Excellent. We can also add dimensions for the width of the opening there, which would be 13. So you can, choose to include both. You don't necessarily have to include both. And then in the side view, all we need to include is the depth of the opening for our USB plug. And that is all we got to do. So now to go ahead and export this, we can go over here and just click, 2-finger click on the tab hit export like we did before. And you guys can just change this to V1 enclosure 1-to-1. Keep everything else the same here and hit export. And then it's being processed. It goes to your downloads, and then you can find it and print it from your downloads. Now, when we do download that as a PDF, there's actually going to be 2 sheets. So when you go in here, we don't need to reprint this sheet. So you can just go print, and then, you know, change your settings to whatever needs to be, and you can change it to only print, you know, page 2, because that's all we need. And then press print, and you'll be good to go.